Welcome back to Wudang Way, everyone. Still continuing the TaiJi internal week. Now we're going into some new basics. So in this video, I want to introduce step by step the Shou or cloud hands practice. So we do this quite often. It's a really great posture. We're still integrating all those basics from yesterday's and the day before video of the standing meditation and the posture basics. But now we're kind of integrating a little bit of movement into the practice as well. So with TaiJi, when we get into these applications, when we get into forms and special movements, different directions, things like that, we need to know how to move the body a little bit. And basically what that means is, where do we start the motion from? Okay, if we're talking about more external, we're talking about more combat, the fast external forms. A lot of times we'll talk about the movement starting from the foot, coming up the body and being translated through a punch or a strike or something like this. But TaiJi, that's very much the same, but we're going to accent the core of the body more. So a lot of times if we talk about Taoism philosophically, or if we talk about the movement that we do as the training here, we always talk about everything beginning in the center of the body. So we talk about the dantian a lot in internal. We also talk about the center of mass, center of gravity. Everything is balanced here. So we're going to think about this is actually also the starting place of all motion. So if you think about this, the way to break it down is in three parts. The analogy is basically like a tree. We say that the feet are like the roots, the body, trunk, and then here we have the branches for the arms, techniques, and the movements that we actually do for the application. The idea there being that this should be soft and able to move around a little bit, because the more rigid your waist is, the more rigid you are in the lower back, the lower your health is, and the easier it is to be injured. So what that means is when we get into doing movements, we get into doing techniques in TaiJi, we actually want to be able to be free to move from here while being supported by the lower body and being really easy to move in the upper body. So this is where we introduce cloud hands as a posture basic, as a way to introduce this type of body motion, because we really want to isolate the waist as being the origin of your movement. So what we're going to do is basically lock the legs into a certain position, and we're going to introduce this hand technique. The first thing is going to be really similar to yesterday's video, stepping out into our basic position shoulders width. With cloud hands, we actually have two different versions where you can sink down and you can step out into a shoulder width and do like a very simple horse stance where it's not too big and you're just isolating the waist. I find that when we start, a lot of times it's easier to step out into a wider stance. So if we have like a light mobble, it doesn't have to be really deep. You can add difficulty by going a little bit deeper, going a little bit wider. But I find that if you have a little bit of a mobble engaged, it's a little bit easier to notice if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. But you can also do this practice. A lot of times it's very soft, very simplified, just at shoulder width in a high position. So we can think about it like this, but remember you can always go back and kind of drop down into a deeper stance as well. Okay, so two ways to do it with the footwork. The important thing to remember when you do the footwork, either way that you do it, is that you have it solid and stable and not moving. So if you go way back to our first basic week, in the Back to Basics external part of this series, and we talked about mobble, we talked about throwing those punches, turning the waist. This is very similar to what we're going to do right now, in that you want the lower body to be stable and isolate the movement to the waist. So where if you're turning in one position, the knees don't fall in or shake or move. You want to have them be stable and oriented in the same direction as the feet. So just very stable, nice solid mobble with your weight sunk down and chest empty. Okay? So we'll go ahead and get started and keep that in mind as we go forward. Okay? So first thing with cloud hands, internal practice, we want to take a moment to breathe and relax. And then we're going to start by sinking down. Again, taking the left foot, opening up. Right now, we're just going to go ahead and go with shoulder width so I can focus on the upper body. Okay? Here we have a lot of different openings. We can bring the hands up, kind of getting our opening breath and our relax. And from here we can do lots of different ways. We can do a few empty breaths. We can also do our basic from yesterday we went through with the different hand postures. I find that you can kind of experiment with different ways. Take a moment, get your breathing down, get stable, get kind of connected to your breath and your hand movement, and then we'll go into the cloud hands. For now, just use the basic we did in yesterday's video to get started. So once we finish that with our last breath, we're going to sink down. And then a very easy way to start is we're just going to lift the left hand and kind of turn the waist that way. Then we're going to bring the right hand up, and the left hand goes down. So very simply, we're still kind of keeping this posture of the hands being round, just like standing meditation. We're just changing the depth. So one is elevated and one is lowered. We have one palm at eye level and one palm at groin level or at waist level. Okay, so we're just going to isolate the movement to the waist. So what's that mean? When we bring the hands across each other, once they become open, then they don't move side to side like this. Okay, we actually, side to side motion is controlled through the waist. So up and down through the hands, and then side to side through the waist, and then we get to here and go down. Keeping it really simplified right now to get it explained is we're actually drawing a square. So you're just going to think up and down, turn to the side, turn the wrist, and go up and down. Okay, so very simplified, we're doing this. What we want to do with the turning side to side, again, is isolate the waist without moving the legs. So again, if we drop down just a little bit, we have this knees lightly engaged. When we turn to the side, we don't want to see the knees dropping in. We really want to keep the knee open, so that way we're turning the waist. This is all free to move from here, but the hips don't move. Okay, so waist and hips are very different. Okay, remember this. So as we go to the side, left and right is controlled through the waist, up and down is controlled through the hands, and we're really drawing a square. The idea is, as this movement becomes more continuous and you're rotating from side to side and changing position, you're cutting off the corners of the square, so to say, by going left to right earlier, and as the hands cross each other, you're coming back. So then that square slowly becomes a circle in front of you. The circle also is staying inside the knees. So as you go side to side, you're not going too far and think, oh, I need to turn as much as possible, and you're overturning past the knees. You actually want to stop right over the knees, and that is your circle. Okay, wherever your light mabu is positioned at, that's your sphere in front of you. So you don't go over that. You're twisting, getting slightly to your limit, and coming back. Keeping your weight 50-50, you're only doing left and right. Okay? You're always leading with the palms through the motion. This is another detail in TaiJi. As we turn to the side, the wrist on the upper hand is going to be connected to the waist. So as we turn, the wrist turns around. So one twist from the left side to the right side waist is one twist of the upper wrist. So in this case, the right side turn, right side wrist. Then we're going down simultaneously, and then we're coming back, left wrist, left waist, until we get palm out. And that way, as we come up and down, the left palm is pressing and the right palm is rising. So the palm is leading. Okay, we always have that. As we get here, we have a little bit of standing basics coming back to where this arm is rounded. There's no hooks in the wrist. Everything is kind of stretched out and even. And this is a nice round angle, so you're not too close to the body, you're far away. You get this rounded here, shoulder forward, and elbow drop down, which will keep the shoulder down. If you get here and you start doing this motion with the arm being flat, then you'll find that the shoulder is very easy to raise. Okay, and it's a bad technique for application later. We always want to keep the elbow sunk down. So you can really think of this as being like a block. A lot of times we'll explain it like, okay, this is a block from a straight punch. This is a really simple way to understand the movement. I wouldn't say that these basic movements are meant for that reason, but you can correlate it with that to help you remember, like a visualization. Okay, like this one is a block and this one is cover underneath. But really you just want to get that timing synchronized, so all the momentum is coming from the waist as you turn side to side. Keeping space, the last detail, on your lower arm between the body. So just like standing meditation, we don't want to drop the elbows and sink on the body and have this kind of deficient looking position. We want to have everything open and round and sunk with space. So when we come from the bottom position, the right hand, elbow dropped, and the left hand, in this case, is away from the body, so we keep this space. So we still have that kind of like distance. One of the ways that I've described it before is as if you have a dancing partner. So it's really like you have space in between you and your hands. You don't want to be too close and have this start. The closer you get to the body, the more the movement becomes to rely on the arms and not the waist, because you're kind of turning and getting this really small position. you want to have this large position where it's very far away. So now we can come back to cloud hands. And the idea is that the hands are literally like clouds. So they're distant, they're barely moving. So if you stopped at any moment, it's almost as if they're not moving, but they're barely moving throughout. They're very soft and fluid and moving together cleanly across the sky. So very simple. Okay? And we have this practice just back to back. Hopefully you're timing it to where everything stays in the middle line, so you're not leaving a hand behind as you turn. You really want to make sure that everything stays right in front. So if you have like a button-up shirt, the idea is that your hands are always in front of you. You're just going up and down, left to right. I've got a lot of ways to think about these basics. I tend to find that certain people, you have to pick on a certain detail. Maybe it's an imbalance or something that resonates with you, and kind of pay attention to that one detail and use that as the key to kind of go deeper into the practices. So if it's sitting back on the lower back because you tend to open the chest, then sit back. If it's keeping space underneath your arm as if you had like a knife coming out from your ribs and touching your arm, think of that. If it's keeping the elbow down because you have a weight pulling the elbow down, think of this. You kind of have to tend to pick one. If it's keep your eyes on the palm of your hand to watch the clouds move across the sky because it keeps you from dipping your head down and looking at the ground, do that. You kind of tend to pick one and focus on that for a while until it becomes natural. And then this practice becomes meditative, very simple, just moving back and forth. So a few times empty. As we do this, the last thing is we can really just integrate the breathing to where it's exhale to the sides. Maybe as we cross and we come to the middle, we can inhale. As we go past the middle, we can exhale until we cross the hands, and then begin to inhale again. So as you turn to the side, I have exhale, cross, inhale, keeping the back round, keeping the space of the body, exhale, inhale to the center. Remember the head following the hands. Eyes open or closed is okay. And then back through. So then as you've gone through this a few times, you can kind of keep track, set yourself a number, or as you start to feel relaxed and very heavy and centered, then you can have any type of closing. Just kind of cross the hands lightly and bring the body up. If you're in a low stance, you can bring your stance back to shoulder width. If you're in shoulder width, just bring the hands up and relax. Remember sinking down with the exhale. Nice and empty. And then bring the left foot back over to the right. Feet together and give yourself a moment to relax. And then after, you can move around and kind of shake out. From there, we can move on to other practices that we're going to do in the future with standing meditation. Sometimes the cloud hands is a very good intro to the standing meditation or into another TaiJi form, or just a few minutes of practice if you have some time in the morning to go through some kind of deep breathing exercise. I find that this is really helpful for lots of reasons. Again, pick something that speaks to you. If it's something more on the posture or something you have an old injury, or maybe it's just a stability or an emotional thing, it's a really great way to calm down and get kind of centered back inside. There's a lot of layers to these kinds of practices. In these videos, I'm just kind of introducing the form, introducing the movement, and hopefully you pick up on something that speaks well to you. But I hope to keep moving forward in videos to come and kind of uncovering more and more layers with these, because it's very simple, but at the same time, these can be very complex, very complicated, and deep. And hopefully they have many different ways they can benefit different people. So I hope you can follow along with that. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we got one more video to kind of correlate some movement and bring everything together, and then we'll still be following up with some videos later on to kind of have whole follow along practice videos that you can do on your own to kind of review all the movement and compile it all in one practice. So stay tuned. We have a few more videos coming out this week. I hope you're really enjoying the internal week. We have a lot more to come. We'll see you next time. Thank you for watching this video. be sure to hit subscribe, check out all the information underneath. There you can navigate to the Ways of Wudang Patreon account. And by becoming a Patreon, you can get access to all the main channel resources around martial arts, Taoist philosophy, even Chinese music, and group classes, live streams, one-on-one courses, and a bunch of other stuff as well. So I hope you'll go check that out, and I hope to see you there. Once more, thank you for all your support. We'll see you in the next video.